The NFC North is going to be stupid, insane. I repeat, the NFC North is going to be crazily insane with so much competition between a lot of good teams in one division. And last year, we kind of saw a sample of it. I believe this year, we're going to see the same thing again. And in this video, I'm going to show you why I believe that this will be the tough division again. Give me a moment, and I'm going to show you.
Won 11 games and finished top 8 in both offensive and defensive points per game. What was unfortunate for Green Bay is who they lost their 6 games to in 2024. They were 1-5 in the division as they were swept by both the Lions and Vikings and lost the Week 18 game against the Bears before losing in the wildcard round to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their only loss outside of the division was also to the Eagles in Week 1, which was the Friday night Brazil game. And because the Packers were a team that lost in the wildcard round last year and ultimately finished third in their division despite winning 11 games, they did not receive a lot of media attention last year. But this team is going to be really solid again in 2025, and the common theme throughout today's video is that you can't dismiss any of these teams and pencil them in as an easy win. They are all too talented, and while I admittedly don't think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl this year, or even go to the NFC Championship game for that matter, they are a very high floor team that I think will improve in some areas compared to last year. A big part of Jordan Love's game in 2023 was his ability to extend the play, and as simple as this is, take what was in front of him, both in the air and on the ground. And while you wouldn't confuse Jordan Love with Lamar Jackson, I am a firm believer that he was limited for a lot of 2024 based on the injury he suffered late in Week 1 against the Eagles. And obviously, when you're limited, that's going to affect how you play. Inevitably, it did, as Jordan Love had just 83 rush.
So, Jordan Love was injured last year. I think that was a big reason why that Green Bay was only able to win one game in the division, even though they had a great season winning 11. They only was able to win one game in the division, and you always want to play better against your divisional foes. But they were outstanding against the field, against the NFL as a whole. They were, I think they were something like 10-1 or something like that. They only lost one to the Eagles on opening day, I believe. That's what uh, the guy said.
Yards for the entire 2024 season. But the offense this year is going to be a fun unit, as the Packers drafted a receiver in the first round for the first time since 2002, as they selected wide receiver Matthew Golden, who should immediately help out this passing attack.
By them drafting Matthew Golden, the first round pick, that's going to help Jordan Love really like develop the guy that he can trust. That's going to be their wide receiver number one. I feel like last year they didn't have a number one. So by drafting Matthew Golden, I believe the sky's the limit for this kid
that desperately needs it. Green Bay had a handful of receivers that were not bad, but certainly not guys that could take over the game either, and having Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, and tight end Tucker Kraft to throw the ball to will be very beneficial for not just Jordan Love, but for Josh Jacobs too. Jacobs, of course, had over 1,600 total yards and had 16 total touchdowns in his first year with Green Bay, and I fully expect him to be in the playoff hunt again in 2025.
Yeah, with the ability to run the ball with Jacobs and then having Jordan Love do what he do, I think that's a nice balance and a recipe for success.
The one thing I really worry about with this team is, well, its division, of course, but specifically their corners. The Packers recently released Jair Alexander, and for as good of a free agent signing as Xavier McKinney was at safety, he can't play everywhere, and having your top corners at this point be guys like Harrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, and Nate Hobbs in a division with guys like Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, and really the list goes on, leads me to believe this is going to be a very limited team in 2025.
Losing Jair Alexander is huge. Um, I don't know if they can recover from that. That's going to definitely affect their pass defense. So we'll see how much that affects Green Bay on defense.
They will have a high floor, of course, and again, I would be very surprised if they're not in playoff contention, but in January, when it's time to go against the best of the best the NFL has to offer, even for as good as I think the Packers offense will be this year, I can't help but think their secondary is going to be a liability when it matters most. coaches from the 2020
Now we're gonna
I
talk
dare
about
you to
Lions
let me
draft
build you
commercial.
a completely
You
free
pay our bills.
e-commerce store
Stay
preloaded
with
with
us.
20
24 Lions went either with Ben Johnson to the Bears or with Aaron Glenn to the Jets, and that former center Frank Ragnow retired, that the Lions are inevitably going to fall off. And while, yes, I do think they will.
Okay, anytime you lose your center, like your center is your smartest guy on the offensive line. So if you lose your center, you have to have a replacement with experience. And second of all, you have to have a guy that can lead the rest of the group and mesh. So a lot of times it doesn't come real quick.
Quote unquote fall off. Let's just be real here, guys. I don't think they're going to win 15 games in 2025. And I don't think they would have won 15 games even if they still had Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Repeating 15 win seasons is incredibly difficult for anybody, but the Lions can still win 12 games and go to the NFC Championship game, or they can still go to the Super Bowl. Because remember, they are still an extremely talented roster, and they are still set up for not just 2025, but for 2026 and beyond too. Now, is there going to be a little bit of a drop off or a transition period from Ben Johnson to John Morton, the team's new offensive coordinator? Probably yes, but John Morton is not a stranger to this team. He was a senior offensive assistant back in 2022, and what also has to be remembered is while I do think Ben Johnson is a very good offensive mind, it is very much fair to say that the Lions' offense is absolutely loaded, and it's very much like naming guys from a loaded 2001 Miami Hurricanes roster where you have
Yeah, they are loaded. They're definitely loaded. You got Jameer Gibbs, 1,400 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. He's catching for 500. That's almost 2,000 yards of offense. You got Montgomery running the ball. You got weapons on the outside, so they definitely got the weapons. So the talent is in play, but you can't um, overlook cohesion, and that's my question. So it's easy to just assume that everything is going to work, but we still have to see. And after watching them perform, even though it's preseason, but nobody envisioned that they would be struggling like that on offense, so and on defense on both sides of the ball because the offense wasn't scoring and the defense couldn't stop anybody.
Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Taylor Decker, and Penei Sewell. And a guy who I think is really underrated heading into the year is 2024 sixth-round pick Christian Mahogany, and a player who I think will break out this year. The point is, whether the play caller is Ben Johnson or John Morton, they should still have a relatively high level of success because of how loaded the offense is. Now, I am not one to speculate on injuries heading into any season, but I do think it is fair to say that I don't think the 2025 Lions will be as injured defensively as much as they were last year. At least I sincerely hope not. And that getting players like Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, and not just those guys, but several other guys back is going to be critical for their success this year. And I do think Hutch was well on his way to winning.
So getting Aiden Hutchinson back is going to be everything. Just in 5 games, he had 45 pressures, 19 total tackles, 17 quarterback hits, and 7.5 sacks, and one forced fumble. That's just in 5 games. So a guy like that coming back, even if he's three-fourths of what he was, I mean, that's got to help their defense. So Detroit's defense is looking pretty good right now. Getting him back, in my opinion.
A Defensive Player of the Year award last year, as he had 45 pressures in really 4.5 games, and he also had 7.5 sacks. And I do think that he would have been on pace for another 100 plus pressure season, as well as a 14, 15, maybe even 17 or 18.5 sack type year, and that he would have won the Defensive Player of the Year on a 15 win team. The biggest thing for the 2025 Lions and 10 in
Talk about the Bears
2023 and
now.
5 and 12 in 2024, including a 10-game losing streak last year. But this video is discussing the NFC North, and there's 3 teams in this division that won 11 games last year, including 2 that won 14 or more games. Now, with Chicago specifically, I do think they are going to improve in a big way in 2025. And one of the reasons is not just due to Ben Johnson, because I think at this point the hype surrounding Ben Johnson can get a little or a lot out of hand. And I also think there is this belief that Ben
I think the Bears will be better. I think that getting Johnson in to mentor Caleb Williams is going to be huge because he's really good with quarterbacks. We know that the coordinator last year for the Bears really didn't take up extra time in terms of uh, preparing Caleb with film study, and we know that Johnson is going to do that, and I feel like that's going to help Caleb's career jump leaps and bounds.
And Johnson is a miracle worker, and Caleb Williams is going to go from a kind of disappointing rookie season, at least based on the expectations he had coming out of USC, to a legit top 6 or 7 quarterback in one offseason. And while in theory that could happen, two of the biggest reasons I'm excited for the Bears in 2025 is, of course, Ben Johnson working with Caleb, but also the offensive line being upgraded too. And we live in a world where the truth eventually comes out, and what I'm referring to here is there was reports recently that nobody was sitting down and watching film with Caleb Williams during his rookie season.
No,
Now,
got it.
obviously, Caleb is a professional athlete, and I don't want to say he should be coddled his entire career, but this was a 22-year-old number one overall pick in his rookie season. And my point is, every young quarterback should have the opportunity to sit down and watch film with either their OC or head coach regularly. And the fact this was not a regular occurrence, to me, was kind of a slap in Caleb's face because this is the bare minimum that should be done in terms of helping your number one overall pick. And again, I do think Ben Johnson getting hired to be the Bears head coach can be a little overblown at times or a little overhyped. But even if you are out on Caleb Williams entering year two, I would hope that you can acknowledge that
Like I said, I think that the Bears overall, when you struggle and you have a hole to get out of, just off of the strength of knowing that you have to be better than you were last year. I feel like that's going to help them on both sides of the ball. I think that the Bears will be way more competitive, and I really believe that they will be. I'm not saying they'll make the playoffs, but they'll definitely be way more competitive early on when the year starts.
him having a significantly upgraded play caller should help out Caleb Williams this year. And not to mention stability within play calling too, as Caleb is already onto his fourth play caller in his career, and we haven't even
He's only played a year. How do you get 4 play callers? So, yes, just having one is gonna help out tremendously.
started his second season yet. Now, do I think the Bears are going to go 13-4 in Ben Johnson's first year as the team's head coach? No, and I don't know if any realistic Bears fans actually do. Keyword there being realistic Bears fans. Now, do the Bears have some limitations in the run game and defensively too? Yes. They do not have a guy who can get after the quarterback as consistent.
You don't have a guy that get after the quarterback, then you're gonna be in trouble. And if you can't run the ball, that's gonna be tough too. As we see, Swift, his numbers, that's not gonna get it done. So hopefully, for the Bears' sake, they got a guy and the offensive line intact to help the running game.
As you'd like. And that's not to say Montez Sweat is a bad player because he's not, but he is not a tier one pass rusher by any means either. He's not a legit franchise cornerstone, and there's nothing wrong with that because they traded a second round pick for him, and not every player can be a franchise cornerstone. But for the Bears heading into 2025, they are a much improved team from where they were in 2024 last year, is
We're gonna
going
talk
to
about the
repeat
Vikings.
that level of success and win 14 games again for the second consecutive year. Now, I do think there is a
The Vikings got 5 new offensive linemen, so he just showed that in the graphic. Just wanted to point that out.
higher chance that they win 11 or 12 games this year and win a playoff game, but I do not think they're going to win 14 games. And the playoff game and winning a playoff game also applies to the Lions as well, despite me not thinking they're going to have back-to-back 15-win seasons. The Minnesota Vikings are set up for success for not just 2025, but really the next couple of years because now instead of having Kirk Cousins on the high quarterback contract, they drafted J.J. McCarthy with the highest selection they've ever spent on a quarterback in franchise history as he was selected at number 10 overall. And they are now in the rookie quarterback contract window and have several stars on their roster like Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Jonathan Gernard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and several others to name a few.
Why? Why can't I make any changes without an admin approval? Huh?
One moment, please.
You should try Monday.com. I swear.
There we go.
One of the biggest reasons as to why I'm high on the Vikings entering the 2025 season is because of the prioritization of the interior offensive line and also the prioritization of the backup running back.
Anytime you got a guy like Justin Jefferson getting you 100 receptions for 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 15 yards per catch, you're gonna present problems to anybody. So he's just special.
This offseason. Despite the Vikings winning 14 games last year, this was not a team like the Philadelphia Eagles where they could have Saquon Barkley run behind that big offensive line and wear you down in the fourth quarter where he's picking up 6, 7, 8, 10 yards a carry, and there's really no answer for it because your defense is not only that gassed but also that physically less dominant compared to the Eagles' offensive line. The Vikings finished 26th in yards per carry last year, and their interior offensive line was a train wreck. They also had left tackle Christian Darrisaw go.
So they finished 26 yards, 26th in yards per attempt, 19th in total rushing yards, and 29th in rushing touchdowns. So how was they able to win 14 games? That's insane. They were able to be that good and win that many games off the strength of really passing the ball in Justin Jefferson. But they won't ever win when it matters most if they can't run the ball.
Down with a torn ACL midway through the year, which also factored into the lack of run game over the course of the regular season. The Vikings' interior offensive line last year was led by Blake Brandel, Garrett Bradbury, Dalton Reisner, and Ed Ingram, and there's only one of the 4 players from that quartet that is still on the roster in Blake Brandel, and there's ultimately a reason for that. Bradbury, a former first-round pick, was released, and Ed Ingram was traded to the Texans for pennies on the dollar compared to where he was drafted, which was back in the second round back in 2022. And the key reason that he was traded for just a 6th-round pick was because he is not very good. But Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah went out and traded a 6th-round pick for Jordan Mason this offseason, and for the Vikings to effectively trade Ed Ingram to the Texans for Jordan Mason, a talented running back from the 49ers, was a tremendous move. And to be able to have both Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason run behind an offensive line that features, of course, one of the best tackle duos in football in Christian Darrisaw.
It looks like that they are committing to the running game this year. So we already know that they can pass, but they're committing to the running game, which is a good thing because if you can add balance and then being able to run when it gets cold to open up the passing game, Justin Jefferson would be that much harder to cover.
On Brian O'Neill and a much improved interior offensive line in Donovan Jackson, Will Fries, and Ryan Kelly is a really good recipe to set your team up for success entering the 2025 season and ultimately in a year where you are starting not a rookie quarterback, but might as well be a rookie quarterback because he's never thrown an NFL pass in J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings also upgraded the defense in a big way this offseason as they brought in guys along the interior defensive line like Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. And if the Super Bowl proved anything, it was that you have to be able to get after the quarterback routinely. And to be able to have both of those guys along with Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and even 2024 first-rounder Dallas Turner as a rotational player, be able to get after the quarterback is huge for a team that has deep postseason aspirations.
All right, so we basically stopped it right there. Thanks to expert analysis for breaking that down and articulating that. My take is that I feel like that the best quarterback in this division right now is Jordan Love, present day. I think Jordan Love, has basically gone the furthest as far as like with his progression. I feel like he's healthy. I feel like his offense will be good, but I don't like the fact that they haven't replaced Jair Alexander. I think that that's going to hurt their pass defense, and ultimately, it's going to cost them when it matters most. But I do think that they'll make the playoffs. I think that they'll be one of the top teams still, regardless, because of how good Jordan Love and his offense is going to be. I think the Detroit Lions will still be ultimately in the mix. I think that they'll start out slow due to the transition, losing the defensive coordinator, Terry Glenn, and losing Ben Johnson on offense. So anytime you lose key people, leadership, sometimes it takes a while for things to come together. I believe the Vikings is going to be the best team in that division. It's like he said, anytime that you do work on the lines, the offensive line, they brought 5 guys in. On the defensive side of the ball, they brought 2 or 3 guys in to improve where they were struggling. And I feel like that they will be able to run the ball with the additions. They won't be 26th in the league in rushing. And ultimately, I think that they corrected their wrongs. Now, the one question is that they have a rookie quarterback starting, even though he's an experienced guy. He's not like young, but still, JJ McCarthy, excuse me. I watched him in college. I'm not gonna say that I loved him. I liked him. He showed me more running the ball than he did throwing, and I feel like he's gonna have to get the ball to Jefferson. He's gonna have to turn into more of a thrower really quick, and that was something that he really didn't do in college. Coach Harbaugh and basically ended up using his feet more than he did his arm. So I'm wondering, will he be polished enough to be able to run the team so they can meet their expectations? And then the Chicago Bears will be better. They have a more structure in their organization, especially on offense, giving Caleb Williams somebody to mentor and show him the way. Where last year he didn't get that. I believe that he will play much better, and I ultimately see that the Bears being more competitive and the Bears being able to press on and actually compete for the playoffs. So that's my take. Please make sure that you like the channel and subscribe to the Wine Boss channel for more up to date NFL um, analyzation and everything else related to the NFL. So until the next time, take care of yourself. Be safe, and I'm out.